The ship moved through the darkness of space without a sound. Inside, Ambassador sat alone in her cabin. She looked at the stars through the small window. Each star was a sun. Each sun had planets. And on many of those planets there were beings who wanted humanity dead. Her communicator beeped. She pressed the button. "Ambassador, we will arrive at the Council Station in 1 hour," said Captain Menu. "Thank you, Captain. I will be ready." Stood up and walked to her mirror. She was 42 years old. Her black hair was tied back in a simple style. Her face showed no fear, even though fear lived deep inside her heart. She had been a diplomat for 15 years. She had talked to many alien species, but today was different. Today, she would stand before the Galaxy Council, and the Galaxy Council did not like humans. She put on her formal uniform. It was dark blue with silver buttons. On her chest, she wore the symbol of Earth, a small blue planet with white clouds. She touched it softly. This small symbol meant everything. It meant home. It meant 8 billion people who were counting on her. The ship slowed down as it approached the council station, walked to the observation deck and looked outside. The station was massive. It was bigger than any city on Earth. It floated in space like a metal mountain. Lights covered every surface. Ships from 100 different worlds moved around it like insects. "It never gets smaller," said a voice behind her. Turned, it was Lieutenant, her assistant. Was young, only 25, but she was smart and brave. "No, it does not," agreed. "The council built this station to make visitors feel small, to make them feel weak." "Does it work on you?" Smiled slightly. "I am human. We do not feel small for long." The ship docked at a port on the lower section of the station. When the doors opened, saw 4 alien guards waiting for them. They were tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms. Their eyes were black and showed no emotion. These were the people, one of the oldest species in the galaxy. "Ambassador," one guard said, "you will follow us." It was not a request, it was a command. Nodded calmly, "Lead the way." She walked between the guards with behind her. The hallways of the station were wide and cold. The walls were made of some dark metal that absorbed light. Other aliens passed by them. Some looked at the humans with curiosity. Others looked at them with disgust. A few looked at them with something that might have been fear. They walked for 15 minutes before they reached the great chamber. The doors were 30 meters tall. They were covered with symbols from every species in the council. Noticed that the human symbol was at the very bottom, almost hidden. The doors opened slowly. Inside, the great chamber was enormous. It was round, with seats rising up in circles like a stadium. In those seats sat representatives from 12 different species. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had no solid form at all. But they all had one thing in common. They all looked down at the small platform in the center where would stand. At the highest point of the chamber sat High Elder himself. He was ancient, even by his species' standards. His gray skin was wrinkled like old paper. His 4 arms rested on the arms of his throne. His black eyes watched as she walked to the center platform. The chamber was silent, not a whisper, not a breath. Stood on the platform and looked up at the 12 species. She did not bow. Humans did not bow to those who had shown them no respect. "Ambassador of Earth's voice echoed through the chamber. It was deep and cold. "You have been summoned to answer for the crimes of your species." His face did not change. "What crimes does the council speak of?" A murmur ran through the chamber. Some aliens seemed surprised by her calm voice. They expected fear. They expected begging. They got neither. Leaned forward. "Your species has expanded beyond its permitted boundaries. You have settled on 14 planets in the outer ring. These planets belong to the council." "Those planets were empty," said. "No species had claimed them for 3,000 years." "Empty does not mean available," replied. "The council decides what is available. The council decides where young species may go. Humanity did not ask permission." Humanity asked for permission 12 times, said. Her voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath. 12 times the council said they would consider our request. 12 times we received no answer. Our people needed homes. We could not wait forever. Another murmur filled the chamber. This time it was louder. Some aliens nodded. They knew spoke the truth. The council often ignored requests from younger species. It was their way of showing power. But was not moved. Your reasons do not matter. You broke the law. There must be consequences. And what consequences does the High Elder suggest? Asked. Smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. You will abandon all 14 colonies. You will return your people to Earth and the 3 planets we originally permitted. You will pay a fine of resources to each council member, and you will reduce your military to half its current size. The chamber was silent again. Everyone watched. They expected her to crumble. They expected her to cry or beg or promise anything to avoid punishment. Did none of those things. Instead, she laughed. It was not a loud laugh. It was soft, almost gentle, but in the silent chamber it was like thunder. Ambassador's voice was sharp now. Do you find this amusing? Stopped laughing, but the smile stayed on her face. I find it interesting, High Elder, very interesting. Explain yourself. For 500 years, humanity has watched the council. We have seen how you treat younger species. You take their resources. You limit their growth. You keep them weak so they can never challenge you. Paused. We knew this day would come. We prepared for it. His eyes narrowed. Prepared? What does a species of your age know about preparation? Reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. It was a communicator, but different from normal ones. It could reach across the entire galaxy in seconds. May I make a call? She asked. Waved one of his 4 hands. If it amuses you. Press the button. Fleet Admiral, this is Ambassador. Please confirm status. For a moment there was silence. Then a voice came through, clear and strong. Ambassador, this is Fleet Admiral. All systems are ready. I repeat, all systems are ready, awaiting your orders. The smile faded from his face. Around the chamber, aliens began to whisper. Something had changed. Something they did not expect. Looked up at the High Elder. Her eyes were no longer calm. They were fierce. You wanted to discuss war, High Elder. Let us discuss war. The great chamber erupted into chaos. Aliens shouted in a dozen different languages. Some stood up from their seats. Others slammed their appendages against their desks. The noise was deafening. Stood still in the center of it all. She kept the communicator in her hand. On the other end, Fleet Admiral waited in silence. He knew what was happening. He had prepared for this moment for 20 years. High Elder raised all 4 of his arms. Silence! His voice boomed through the chamber. The noise died slowly like a fire running out of fuel. Silence, I command you. The aliens returned to their seats, but the fear in the room was real now. Could smell it, almost taste it. These powerful beings who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, they were afraid of a species that had only discovered space travel 500 years ago. Turned his black eyes back to, you dare to threaten this council. I make no threats, said calmly. I simply state facts. You asked about our crimes. I am showing you our response. Your response? A new voice spoke. It came from the left side of the chamber, turned to see representative of the species. They were tall and thin with blue skin and eyes that glowed like stars. What response can humanity offer? You are children compared to us. Smiled. Children grow up, representative. Not in 500 years, replied. My species has existed for 50,000 years. They have existed for longer. What can you possibly? Fleet Admiral spoke into her communicator. Please share the current count. His voice filled the chamber again. Certainly, Ambassador. As of this moment, the Human Defense Force consists of 4,700 warships. This includes 600 capital ships, 2,000 destroyers, and 2,100 support vessels. All ships are fully armed and stationed across 12 sectors. The chamber went silent again, but this silence was different. It was the silence of shock. "Impossible," whispered. "Our intelligence showed you had perhaps 500 ships." "Your intelligence," said, "saw what we wanted them to see." Leaned forward in his throne. His wrinkled face showed emotion for the first time, concern. "Even if this is true, numbers mean nothing. Your weapons are primitive. Your shields are weak. Our fleets would destroy you in days." "Would they?" asked. She pressed another button on her communicator. "Admiral, please share the weapons report." "Ambassador, I am not sure the Council is ready for that information." "Share it anyway." There was a pause, then spoke again. "Very well. 18 months ago, our scientists completed Project Thunder. It is a weapon that creates artificial black holes. Small ones, controlled ones. They exist for only 3 seconds, but 3 seconds is enough to destroy any ship, any station, any planet." The representative stood up so fast his chair fell over. "You lie. Such technology is impossible. We have studied black holes for 30,000 years and never." "Your scientists studied them to understand the universe," interrupted. "Our scientists studied them to win wars. We think differently." "This is a trick," another representative shouted. This was Elder Sisterov, who spoke for the military forces of the Council. "A clever trick to scare us." Nodded slowly. "You are right to be suspicious. Words are easy, so let me offer proof." She touched her communicator. "Admiral, please execute demonstration protocol." "Ambassador, are you certain? Once we do this, there is no going back." "I am certain." "Understood. Executing demonstration protocol. All Council members should direct their attention to Sector 774, coordinates 339. Every alien in the chamber turned to their personal screens. These screens could show any location in the galaxy in real time. They all looked at Sector 774. It was an empty area of space, far from any planet or station. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a human ship appeared. It was small, almost tiny compared to Council warships, but something about it seemed wrong. It glowed with a strange blue light. The ship fired once. A ball of pure darkness shot forward. It grew as it moved, expanding like a hungry mouth. In 3 seconds it had grown to the size of a small moon. Everything near it bent and twisted. Light itself curved around it. Then it vanished. Where the ball had been, there was nothing. Absolutely nothing. The stars behind that point in space looked different. They had shifted, moved by the gravity that had briefly existed there. The chamber was absolutely still. Broke the silence. "That was our smallest weapon. We have larger ones." High Elder stood up slowly. His forearms trembled. Whether from anger or fear, could not tell. "You would destroy the galaxy," he said. "Your weapons would kill everyone, including yourselves." "Yes," agreed. "That is exactly the point." She took a step forward, looking up at all the representatives who had looked down on humanity for so long. "For 500 years you have treated us like insects. You gave us 3 planets and told us to be grateful. You ignored our requests. You blocked our trade. You laughed when our people struggled. You thought we were too weak, too young, too primitive to ever be a threat." Her voice grew stronger with each word. "But here is what you forgot. Humans do not become dangerous when they are strong. Humans become dangerous when they are desperate. You pushed us into a corner. You gave us no choice. So we built weapons that could end everything. Because if we cannot live in this galaxy as equals, then we will make sure no one lives in this galaxy at all." The threat hung in the air like poison. Representative spoke, his voice shaking. "This is madness. You would kill your own people to kill us." "We would die standing," said, "rather than live kneeling." Sat back down heavily. For the first time in perhaps 1,000 years, he did not know what to say. The Council had faced many threats before. They had crushed rebellions. They had defeated enemies, but they had never faced an enemy willing to destroy everything. Finally, the High Elder spoke. "What do you want?" Smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had won a terrible game. "We want what we have always wanted. We want to be equals. We want our 14 colonies recognized as human territory. We want full voting rights in this council. We want fair trade agreements. We want the same respect you give to each other. And if we refuse, then we all die together." His voice was cold now. "The weapons are already positioned. If anything happens to me, if any human colony is attacked, the protocol begins automatically. You cannot stop it. You cannot hide from it. You can only negotiate with it." Lieutenant, who had stood silently throughout, felt her heart pounding. She had known the plan. She had helped prepare for this day. But hearing say the words out loud, it made everything real. This was not a bluff. Humanity had built doomsday weapons, and they were ready to use them. The council members looked at each other. For the first time in history, they faced a species they could not bully. They could not threaten. They could not destroy. They could only talk. Closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them again, the anger was gone. Only exhaustion remained. "We need time to discuss this," he said. "The council will take a recess. You will have our answer in 7 cycles." 7 cycles, agreed. "But understand this, High Elder. Every moment you delay, our weapons remain active. Every moment you plot against us, you risk everything. Choose wisely." She turned and walked toward the door, followed close behind. The aliens watched them leave in complete silence. When the massive doors closed behind them, finally spoke. "Did we just threaten to destroy the galaxy?" Kept walking. Her face was calm, but her hands were shaking. "Yes," she said quietly, "we did." "Do you think they will agree?" Stopped and looked at her young assistant. "I do not know, but I know this, they will never underestimate us again." Behind them in the great chamber, the council began to argue. The galaxy had changed forever. And humanity had changed it. 7 cycles passed slowly on the council station. For the humans, each cycle felt like a lifetime. Spent most of her time in her quarters on the human ship. She could not walk through the station safely anymore. Too many aliens looked at her with hatred now. Some had even tried to follow her. Captain Minu had increased security around the ship. Guards stood at every door. On the 3rd cycle, Fleet Admiral contacted her. "Ambassador, our scouts report unusual activity near the Council's military stations." Sat up in her chair. "What kind of activity?" "Ships are moving, lots of them. They are trying to be quiet about it, but we can see them." "Are they preparing to attack?" Was silent for a moment. "It is possible, but the patterns do not look aggressive. They look defensive, like they are moving ships away from certain areas." "Thought about this, away from our weapons?" "Yes, I believe they are trying to protect their most important assets. If we launch, they want something to survive." Closed her eyes. The galaxy was preparing for the worst. Because of her. Because of what humanity had built. For a moment, she felt the weight of it all, billions of lives depending on decisions made in rooms like this one. "Keep watching," she said. "Report any changes." "Understood, Admiral out." Lieutenant entered the room with a tablet in her hand. Her face was troubled. "Ambassador, you should see this." She handed the tablet. On the screen was a news report from a human colony, New Sol. People were protesting in the streets. They carried signs that said, "No war and peace, not destruction." "They know," said quietly. "Someone leaked information about Project Thunder. People are scared. They do not want to die in a war with the Council." Watched the footage. She saw children in the crowd, families, old people with tired faces. They were afraid, and they had every right to be. "What would you tell them?" asked. Hesitated. I do not know, I understand why we did this, but when I see those children, you wonder if we did the right thing. Yes. Set the tablet down. I wonder too, every day I wonder, but then I remember what the council did to the people. Do you know that story? Shook her head. They were a young species like us. 3,000 years ago they started to expand. They settled on 7 planets. The council said those planets belonged to them. They refused to leave, so the council destroyed them. Every planet, every ship, every person. 8 billion dead in less than a month. His face went pale. I never heard this story. The council made sure no one would remember. They erased them from history, as a warning to other young species. Stood up and walked to the window. I refused to let humanity become another warning. On the 5th cycle, something unexpected happened. A small ship arrived at the station. It was from the carrying representative. But he was not alone. With him came 3 other representatives from species that had not spoken during the council meeting. Captain Minu alerted immediately. They are requesting permission to board our ship, Ambassador. They say they want to talk privately. Was surprised, let them come. 20 minutes later, 4 aliens stood in the meeting room of the human ship. Representative of the, elder of the, a species with rock-like skin, director of the, beings of pure energy that wore special suits to hold their form, and commander of the, massive creatures with 8 legs and no eyes. Sat across from them with by her side. This is unexpected, said. The council usually speaks with one voice. Shifted uncomfortably. The council is not speaking at all right now. They are arguing, that is why we came. Arguing about what? About you, Elder spoke. His voice was deep like rocks grinding together. Some want to accept your terms. Others want to call your bluff and attack anyway. It is not a bluff, said. We know. Director's energy flickered inside her suit. Our scientists analyzed the demonstration. Your weapon is real, perhaps the most dangerous weapon ever created. Then why are you here? Commander moved forward on his 8 legs. Because we do not want to die, and we do not want you to die either. There must be another way. Studied the 4 aliens. They seemed genuine, but she had learned long ago that aliens could lie just as well as humans. What way do you suggest? Leaned forward. The older species, they will never accept humans as equals. Their pride will not allow it. But there are others, younger species like us, who have also suffered under council rule. You want us to form an alliance, realized. Not just an alliance, a new council, one that treats all species fairly, one that shares resources instead of hoarding them, one that lets young species grow instead of crushing them. His eyes went wide. You are talking about revolution. We are talking about change, Elder said. Revolution sounds violent. We do not want violence. We want balance. Stood up and walked around the room. Her mind was racing. This was not what she expected. She had come prepared to threaten and be threatened. She had not expected others to offer friendship. If we do this, she said slowly, the old council will see it as betrayal. They will attack you as well as us. Let them try, Commander said. His voice was surprisingly calm. Your weapons protect you, and if we stand with you, they will protect us too. You want to hide behind our guns. We want to stand beside them. There is a difference. Turn to face them, and what do we get in return? Director's suit glowed brighter. Access to our knowledge, our technology. They have energy systems beyond anything in the galaxy. They can build structures that last forever. They have medical science that can cure almost any disease, and they have traveled to places no other species has seen. It was a generous offer, perhaps too generous. Why would you give us so much? Asked. Smiled sadly. Because you did something none of us ever could. You made the council afraid. For the first time in thousands of years, the old powers face a threat they cannot destroy. You broke their image of perfection, and now other species are starting to wake up. Looked at, Ambassador, should I contact Admiral? Thought for a long moment. Everything she had planned led to one goal: survival. But this offer was bigger than survival. This was a chance to change the galaxy forever. No, she said finally. Not yet. First, I need to know if I can trust you. How can we prove ourselves? Elder asked. Sat back down. Tell me everything. Tell me about the Council's weaknesses. Tell me about the ships they are moving. Tell me about the arguments happening in the Great Chamber, and then we will decide if this alliance is real. The four aliens looked at each other, then slowly began to speak. For the next 3 hours, listened. She learned secrets that the Council had kept hidden for. She learned about old wars and secret agreements. She learned about resources that had been stolen and species that had been enslaved. The more she heard, the more she realized the truth. The Galaxy Council was not strong because it was good. It was strong because it was feared, and now that fear was breaking. When the aliens finally finished, stood up. I believe you, she said. I will speak to my government. If they agree, we will form this new alliance. Bowed his head. Thank you, Ambassador. You will not regret this. As the four aliens left the ship, turned to, do you really trust them? No, admitted. But I trust their fear. They are more afraid of the old council than they are of us. That makes them useful. And if they betray us? Smiled grimly. Then they will learn the same lesson the council is learning. Humanity does not forget, and humanity does not forgive. She picked up her communicator to call Admiral. The game had changed, but humanity was still playing to win. On the 7th cycle, the doors of the Great Chamber opened once again. Walked in, but this time she was not alone. Behind her came Lieutenant, Captain Minu, and 12 human soldiers in full combat armor. They carried no weapons openly, but everyone knew they were dangerous. The council representatives watched in silence as the humans took their positions, walked to the center platform and looked up at High Elder. The old alien looked tired. Deep lines had appeared on his gray face. The past 7 days had not been kind to him. Ambassador said, his voice was flat without its usual power. The council has reached a decision. Before you speak, interrupted, I have something to show you. Frowned, this is not protocol. The council speaks first. Protocol died when you threatened to destroy my people. His voice was sharp as a blade. Now you will listen. She pulled out a data chip and held it up. On this chip is evidence. 500 years of evidence. Evidence of every crime the council has committed against younger species. The chamber stirred. Aliens shifted in their seats. Some looked worried, others looked confused. I know about the, continued, 8 billion people erased from existence. I know about the, forced into slavery to mine your precious metals. I know about the, whose you poisoned because they refused to join the council. I know about the trade blockades, the stolen technology, the rigged elections in the outer systems. She dropped her hand to her side. I know everything. His face twisted with anger. Where did you get this information? From friends, smiled coldly. Surprising, I know, humanity having friends, but it turns out we are not the only species tired of council tyranny. As if on cue, the doors opened again. Representative walked in, followed by Elder, Director, and Commander. But they were not alone. Behind them came representatives from 8 more species, species that had always voted with the council, always followed orders, always stayed silent. Not anymore. They walked to the center platform and stood behind. 12 species, united, against the old powers that had ruled the galaxy for too long. Stood up so fast his throne fell backward. What is the meaning of this? This is treason. No, said calmly, this is change. Elder's sister activated her communicator. Security. We need security in the Great Chamber immediately. Nothing happened. Your security forces have been Delayed, Director said. Her energy suit pulsed with light. They will not be coming. The old council members looked at each other in panic. For the first time they were powerless. Their fleets were scattered, trying to avoid human weapons. Their allies had betrayed them, and their enemies stood united before them. Took a step forward. High Elder, I give you one chance. Stand down. Accept the new order. Share power with the species you have oppressed for so long. If you do this, no one needs to die. 4 hands clenched into fists. You think you have won, you think this alliance will last. The moment you show weakness, they will turn on you. Everyone turns on everyone eventually. Perhaps, agreed. But that is the future. Today we are strong, today we are together, and today you are alone. The High Elder turned to his remaining supporters. Only 4 species stood with him now. Though with their crystal bodies, they with their snake-like forms, the warriors covered in spikes, and themselves, 4 against 13. We still have fleets, Elder hissed. We can fight. You can die, corrected. Is that what you want? To burn in the fire of your own pride, to take your people to extinction because you cannot accept change. Commander moved forward on his 8 legs. I fought in the Galactic Wars 3,000 years ago. I watched billions die because leaders refused to compromise. Do not make the same mistake, High Elder. There is no honor in pointless death. Looked around the chamber. He saw the fear in his supporters' eyes. He saw the determination in his enemies' eyes. And he saw something he had never expected to see, hope in the eyes of the neutral species. Hope that things might finally get better. He was old. He had ruled the galaxy for longer than most species had existed. He had crushed rebellions, conquered empires, and built monuments that would last forever. But he had never faced anything like this. A young species, barely old enough to travel between stars, had united the galaxy against him. Not through violence, not through conquest, through sheer, stubborn refusal to give up. Slowly, the fight went out of him. What do you want? He asked. His voice was quiet now, like wind through dry grass. Had prepared for this moment her entire career. She had imagined it 1,000 times. She had practiced her words, her tone, her expression. But now that it was here, she felt only sadness. I want what every species wants, she said. A chance to live, to grow, to make our own choices without fear. I want my children to look at the stars and see opportunity, not danger. I want peace. Peace, repeated the word like it was foreign. You threaten to destroy the galaxy and you want peace. I threaten to destroy the galaxy to get peace. There is a difference. Stepped forward and handed a data tablet. On it was a document, the new treaty they had prepared. This is our proposal, said. A reformed council, equal representation for all species, fair trade agreements, protected territory for every member, no more expansion by force, no more secret wars, no more erasure of species that inconvenience you. She held out the tablet toward. Sign this and we move forward together. Refuse and... She let the threat hang in the air. Stared at the tablet. Around him, his supporters whispered. Elder looked like she wanted to grab a weapon and fight. The others looked ready to run. If I sign this, said slowly, what happens to my people? Your people they keep their culture. They keep their dignity. The only thing they lose is the right to dominate others. That is everything we have ever been. Shook her head. No, it is what your leaders chose to be. Your people can choose differently. Everyone can choose differently. That is what freedom means. A long silence filled the chamber. Minutes passed. No one moved, no one spoke. Then slowly reached out with one of his 4 arms. He took the tablet from his hand. If I sign this, he said, future generations will curse my name. They will say I was the one who ended supremacy. Or they will thank you, replied. They will say you were wise enough to change, wise enough to save your people from a war they could not win. Looked at the tablet for a long moment. Then he pressed his thumb to the signature panel. The tablet beeped. The document was official. The great chamber erupted. Some aliens cheered. Others wept. A few stormed out in anger, but most stood in stunned silence, unable to believe what had just happened. Felt's hand on her shoulder. "We did it," whispered. "We actually did it." "Not yet," said quietly. "Signing a paper is easy. Living by it will be hard. The real work starts now." She looked up at the chamber full of species, old enemies, new friends, uncertain allies. The galaxy had been one way for thousands of years. It would take time to become something else. But for the first time in human history, they had a seat at the table. A real seat, not given by charity or pity, but earned through strength and determination. Captain Minu approached her. "Ambassador, Admiral is asking for orders. Should we stand down?" "Thought about it?" "No, not yet. Keep the weapons active until every council member has signed. Trust is earned, not assumed." Minu nodded and stepped away to send the message. Watched as more aliens approached the signing tablet. One by one, they added their marks. The old order was ending. Something new was beginning. And humanity stood at its center. Not as conquerors, not as victims, as equals. It was what they had wanted all along. 1 year had passed since the signing of the new accord. Stood on the observation deck of the newly rebuilt council station. The old station had been torn down piece by piece. In its place stood something different, a station designed by all member species together. Human engineers had worked alongside builders and energy specialists. The result was beautiful. Light flowed through crystal walls. Gardens grew in zero-gravity chambers. And at the center of it all was the new council chamber, where every species had an equal seat. "Ambassador's voice came from behind her, but she was not lieutenant anymore. She was counselor now, second in command. "Yes. The delegates from the outer rim are arriving. The ceremony begins in 1 hour. Nodded but did not turn around. She kept looking at the stars. "Do you remember what I told you on the old station?" asked. "About the species the council destroyed?" "Yes, I was thinking about them today. 8 billion people erased from existence. No graves, no monuments, not even a mention in the history books. Finally turned to face. Last month our archaeologists found there. It was buried under council propaganda, hidden from every map. But we found it." "What did they find?" "Cities, beautiful cities frozen in time. Art, music, technology. A whole civilization waiting to be remembered," smiled softly. "We are building a memorial there, so the galaxy never forgets what happens when power goes unchecked." Stood beside her teacher. The council did not like that decision. "The old council members never like anything we do. That is how I know we are doing it right." They walked together through the corridors of the station. Aliens of all kinds passed by them. Some nodded respectfully. Others waved. A few young ones even asked for pictures with the famous human ambassador. The galaxy had changed. Not completely. There were still problems, still conflicts, still species that hated each other. But the fear was gone. No one lived under the shadow of a tyrannical council anymore. Trade was open. Technology was shared. Young species could grow without worrying about being crushed. Fleet Admiral met them at the entrance to the new council chamber. He was older now, his hair completely gray, but his eyes were still sharp. "Ambassador, Counselor." Admiral shook his hand. "Is everything ready?" "The weapons have been deactivated and dismantled, as agreed. The last of the Project Thunder devices was destroyed this morning." He paused. "I never thought I would be happy to disarm, but here we are." Nodded. It had been the final condition of the peace. Once the new accord was fully in place, humanity would destroy its doomsday weapons. It was a sign of trust, a gesture of good faith. Some on Earth had protested. They said keeping the weapons was smart. They said the galaxy would betray humanity the moment they were weak. But understood something those people did not. Weapons could force temporary peace. Only trust could create lasting peace, and trust required risk. "How do you feel?" asked, "walking into that chamber without our biggest card?" Smiled lighter, strange as that sounds. They entered the council chamber together. It was packed with delegates from 47 species, more than had ever been part of the old council. New species, young species, species that had been membership for. They all had voices now. High Elder sat in his new position, no longer at the top of the chamber but level with everyone else. His face showed no emotion, but could see the effort it took. For someone who had ruled from above for so long, sitting as an equal must have been painful. Good, pain-built character. Representative stood at the central podium. He would be giving the opening address. In the past year, he had become one of the strongest voices for reform. The alliance had built in that desperate moment had grown into something real. Delegates of the new Galactic Council began. 1 year ago, we stood at the edge of destruction. 2 paths lay before us, war or change. We chose change, and today we gather to celebrate that choice. Applause filled the chamber, watched the faces of the delegates, hope, pride, relief, so many emotions all mixed together. "But we must not forget," continued, "how close we came to losing everything, and we must not forget who pushed us to choose better." He turned and looked directly at. Ambassador of Earth came to this station with nothing but words and will. She faced the most powerful beings in the galaxy and refused to kneel. She showed us that strength is not about weapons, though she had those too. A small laugh rippled through the chamber. Strength is about conviction, about standing for what you believe, even when you stand alone. Felt squeeze her hand. "Humanity taught us something important," said. "They taught us that even the youngest species can change the course of history. They reminded us that the old ways are not the only ways, and they showed us that true power comes not from domination, but from cooperation." He raised his hand toward, "Ambassador, please join me." Walked to the podium. Every eye in the chamber followed her. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the fear, the anger, the desperate gambles. She thought about the people who had trusted her, the billions of humans who had watched their ambassador threaten the galaxy to protect them. She thought about her daughter who had sent her a message just that morning. "Mom, I saw your picture in school today. My teacher says you saved humanity. I told her you just did your job." Smiled at the memory. "When I first came to this station," she said, "I expected to fail. The council was old and powerful. Humanity was young and weak. Every logical calculation said we would lose." She looked around the chamber. "But here is what I learned about logic. Logic does not account for stubbornness. It does not account for hope, and it certainly does not account for humans who refuse to accept impossible odds." A murmur of agreement ran through the human delegates. "We built weapons of ultimate destruction," admitted. "We were prepared to end everything rather than surrender. Some have called this madness. Perhaps it was, but it was also necessary. Sometimes you must be willing to lose everything to gain anything." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Today we stand as equals, not because we are the strongest or the oldest we stand as equals because we demanded it, we earned it, and we will defend it for as long as stars burn in the sky." The applause this time was thunderous. Aliens of all species stood and cheered. Even some of the old council members clapped, though their faces showed little joy. After the ceremony found a quiet corner of the station. She looked out at the stars, the same stars she had watched from her ship a year ago. So much had changed, and yet in many ways nothing had changed at all. Humans were still human. They still fought, still loved, still made mistakes. The galaxy was still vast and full of dangers. But there was hope now. Real hope. Not the desperate hope of a species fighting for survival, but the confident hope of a species with a future. Fleet Admiral found her there. "Congratulations, Ambassador. You saved humanity." shook her head. I gambled with humanity. The galaxy saved itself when it chose to change. Stood beside her. What will you do now? There are rumors you might retire. Retire, laughed. The new council has 47 species that have never worked together before. Half of them have ancient feuds. The other half barely trust each other. Someone has to keep them talking. So you will stay. I will stay. She turned to look at. Besides, there are still threats out there. Species beyond the outer rim that have never been contacted. Mysteries in the deep void that we do not understand. Humanity's story is not over. It is just beginning. Nodded slowly. Then I am glad you will be there to write it. He left her alone with the stars. Thought about the future. Challenges would come. Enemies would rise. The peace they had built would be tested again and again. But humanity would face it. They always did. Not because they were special. Not because they were chosen. Because they refused to give up. Smiled and whispered to the stars. War, we're all set. Peace. We're still learning, but we will figure it out. That is what humans do. The stars did not answer. They never did. But knew they were listening.